She didn't do it for America. She didn't do it for France. She didn't do it for the resistance. Not for glory, not for some big political ideal, not because anyone recruited her or trained her or handed her a mission. She did it because her husband was dying in a German labor camp somewhere in Poland, and nobody, not one single person, was coming to help him. So she made a decision, a quiet, deliberate, completely terrifying decision. She picked up her needle and thread, and she walked straight into the homes of the people who were destroying her city. Nobody looked twice, because she was, after all, just the seamstress. Let me paint the picture for you. Paris, 1942, 2 years into German occupation, and on the surface, it almost looks normal. The cafes are open. The metro runs on schedule. Kids walk to school in the morning. Bread lines form and move. The theater season keeps going. Life, in its weird, stubborn way, carries on. But underneath all of that, Paris is terrified, because the Gestapo isn't just a police force, it's a web, and it reaches into everything. Resistance networks are collapsing one by one. Safe houses are getting raided before sunrise. People who were trusted for months, sometimes years, turn out to be informants. Someone talked. Someone always talked, and you never knew who. Think about what that actually does to a person, to a whole city. When you can't trust your neighbor, when the guy running the corner bakery might be reporting your movements to the Germans, when the woman sitting 2 tables away at the cafe might be listening just a little too carefully. That was Paris in 1942. And into that city, one woman decided to walk straight toward the danger instead of away from it. We don't know her real name. In French intelligence files, she shows up only as Colette. Whether that was a code name, a nickname, or something she picked herself, nobody knows. What we do have from declassified DST reports and post-war testimonies gathered in the 1970s is a rough outline of who she was. Born around 1914 or 1915, somewhere in Normandy, moved to Paris in her mid-20s, worked as a seamstress, skilled work, steady work, the kind of job that gets you into the homes of people who can afford nice clothes and want them to fit right. She had a husband. He'd been captured in 1940 during the fall of France and sent to a labor camp in Silesia. She wrote letters, filed inquiries with the Red Cross, tried official channels, unofficial channels, anyone with any kind of connection to anyone who might be able to help. Nothing worked. By early 1942, the news from the camp was getting worse. Mortality rates were climbing fast. A Red Cross inquiry she filed in February of that year was never answered. And at some point, we can't say exactly when, something shifted in her. She stopped waiting. Here's what she did. Through a contact whose identity has never been established, she arranged to offer her tailoring services to the wife of a mid-level Gestapo administrative official in Paris. That's it. Nothing dramatic on the surface. A seamstress looking for work, approaching a household that could afford to pay for it. The wife needed alterations done on a few dresses. The work was excellent. The seamstress was quiet, pleasant, completely unremarkable. She didn't ask questions. She didn't linger. She came, she worked, she left. She got invited back, and then invited into another household, and another. Over the following months, she became a regular presence in at least 3 homes connected to the Gestapo's Paris operation. Now think about what that actually means. She's sitting in the corner of a room, needle in hand, head down, and the people around her are doing what people do when they forget someone else is in the room. They talk, they complain, they say things they probably shouldn't say in front of anyone. Names, addresses, operation timings, the names of informants buried inside resistance networks. Which safe house was next? Which convoy was leaving when? She didn't write any of it down. Writing was death. She kept everything in her head, and every 2 to 3 weeks, she passed what she'd learned to a resistance contact in Paris's 16th arrondissement. Can I ask you something? What do you think that actually felt like? Walking into those homes, every single time, smiling at the door, saying good morning, setting up in the corner with her work, listening, remembering, performing complete, total, unshakable normalcy, while the people around her were, professionally, very good at finding people doing exactly what she was doing. For 14 months, no training, no backup, no one to call if something went wrong, no exit plan that anyone has ever fully reconstructed. Just her memory, and the absolute necessity of not letting a single thing show on her face. Intelligence professionals who've studied cases like this say the same thing over and over. It's not the physical danger that breaks people, it's the performance, the sustained daily decision to walk back in, the weight of knowing that one small mistake, one moment of hesitation, one question that lands wrong, one reaction that flickers for just a second, ends everything. She made that decision every single day for 14 months, and she never made that mistake. Now let me tell you what that actually translated to, what it actually changed. According to post-war assessments, including a partially declassified 1968 French intelligence report and testimonies from surviving SOE officers interviewed in the 1970s and 1980s, what Colette provided during this period was, by any measure, extraordinary. She passed the names of at least 11 Gestapo informants who had embedded themselves inside Paris resistance networks. 11 people who were, at that very moment, destroying organizations from the inside. 7 of those 11 were neutralized by resistance operatives before they could do further damage. 2 fled Paris. The fate of the remaining 2 is unknown. She provided advance warning of at least 4 planned arrest operations. In 3 of those cases, the targeted individuals were warned in time and got out. In the 4th case, the warning arrived 12 hours too late. 1 person died who might not have died. She may have learned about that. We don't know. But if she did, she carried it. Because the situation required her to carry it. And keep going. In the autumn of 1942, she passed information about a deportation convoy, Jewish families being moved from Paris to the Drancy transit camp, the staging point before Auschwitz. The resistance used her information to intercept that convoy. 11 people were pulled off that transport before it reached its destination. 11 people. Years later, some of them gave recorded testimonies. They all described the same thing: being pulled from a vehicle by strangers, taken somewhere they didn't recognize. Not understanding for years afterward that what happened to them was the result of information gathered by a woman sitting in a corner with a needle and thread. Not one of them knew her name. October 1943. Klaus Barbie, the man his own subordinates called the Butcher of Lyon, was sitting at his desk at the hotel terminus. 6:14 in the morning, his adjutant standing near the window. Barbie read a document, then read it again, then a third time. His face went the color of chalk. He set the paper down with a precision that looked almost rehearsed, said nothing. For 31 seconds, his adjutant counted, mentioned this detail years later in a post-war interrogation. 31 seconds of total silence. Then Barbie looked up and said very quietly, "Find me the name of every woman who passed through Rue de la Pompe in the last 8 months." His adjutant hesitated. That was a long street. 8 months was a long time. "All of them?" he asked. Barbie looked at him. "All of them," he said. The investigation ran through November and into early December. What the Gestapo's analysts were mapping was a pattern. Too many operations had failed. Too many targets had moved before anyone arrived. The information wasn't leaking from the top of the command structure. It was coming from somewhere closer, somewhere domestic, somewhere that had regular, legitimate, completely unremarkable access to the right people. The profile they built was specific. A woman, French, regular access to at least one senior officer's household, not an organizational spy. Someone who observed, someone who was simply present in the right rooms at the right moments. Colette was inside that circle. Whether she knew the net was tightening, whether her contact warned her, or whether she sensed it herself through small changes in how she was received in those homes, we don't know. What we know is what she did next. December 7th, 1943, her last contact with her resistance handler. She passed one final piece of information: the name of a Gestapo informant operating in Paris's 15th arrondissement. That name was acted on within 48 hours, successfully, and then she was gone. No further contact, no warning, no explanation, no final message, just silence. The Gestapo never arrested her. After the war, French intelligence cross-referenced her profile against the records of every woman detained in Paris between December 1943 and the liberation of the city in August 1944. The profile didn't match any confirmed detention. She wasn't caught, but she never came forward either. After liberation, French intelligence made a systematic effort to find her. They had a physical description from her resistance contacts: medium height, dark hair, probably in her early 30s by 1944, a small scar on her left hand from a work accident. They had her methods. They had testimony from people she'd helped. They searched for years. They found nothing. Sit with that for a moment. This woman had, by any reasonable historical measure, altered the operational landscape of the resistance in Paris. She had protected lives. She had exposed people who were tearing networks apart from the inside. She had walked voluntarily and repeatedly into the homes of the Gestapo and come back out with information that changed things. And then she simply ceased to exist in the record. No medal, no ceremony, no name on any wall in Paris, no official document anywhere that says, this person did this, and it mattered. Nothing. 1972, a French journalist named Marie-Claire Devereaux published a short piece about Colette in a Paris weekly magazine. It wasn't widely read. A handful of letters came in. None of them proved useful. 2 years later, Devereaux received a single letter in the mail. No return address. Postmarked from a small town in the Dordogne region of southwestern France. 2 paragraphs. No signature. The letter said the writer had read the article, that some details were wrong and some were right, that the person in question had not died and had not disappeared. She had simply decided the life afterward was not one she could live out in the open, that her husband had come home from a camp in the East in 1945, that they had moved somewhere quiet, that this was enough. And then the letter said one more thing. The women you are looking for were not brave in the way the books describe brave. They were tired and frightened, and they did what they did because there was no acceptable alternative. That is not a heroic story. That is just the truth. Devereaux spent years trying to trace the letter, found nothing conclusive. In 1989, shortly before her own death, she donated her research files, the letter included, to the French National Archives. It's still there, in a folder, in a collection most researchers have never opened. Whether it's genuine, whether the woman who wrote it was Colette, whether any of it is actually true, nobody knows for certain. In the 16th arrondissement of Paris, there is a street, an ordinary street. Cars move down it, people walk their dogs on it. On a quiet morning, it looks exactly like every other street in that part of the city. There is no plaque on that street, no marker, no memorial of any kind. But a woman walked down it regularly for over a year. She walked past the building where the people looking for her worked, past checkpoints, past men who were, professionally, very good at finding people doing exactly what she was doing. And she walked through. Every single time, she did it without training, without backup, without any guarantee that the next visit wouldn't be the last. She did it because her husband was dying and no one was coming. And somewhere along the way, what she was doing became bigger than that original reason. It became about the 11 people in that convoy, about the resistance members who didn't get arrested because she'd already named the informant, about the operations that never happened because a woman sitting in a corner heard something and held it in her memory long enough to pass it on. She never called herself a hero. If that letter is real, she specifically rejected the word. She was tired. She was frightened. She did what she did because there was no acceptable alternative. Sometimes history gets written by the people whose names we remember. The generals, the politicians, the ones who stood at microphones and made the declarations that ended up in the textbooks. And sometimes it gets written by someone sitting in a corner, head down, needle in hand, listening.